So, when did you first pick? What was your first instrument? I mean, did you play as a kid? When did you pick it up?
Yeah, I played it as a kid. I believe I started when I was about 10, and I'm 29 now, so it's what, like 19 years, almost 20
Yeah,
years.
man.
I first started on guitar, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Yeah, my dad is a guitar player, multi instrumentalist, music educator. So I've just kind of been around it, literally just out the womb. But I didn't really like gravitate towards it on my own until I was about like 9 or 10.
Mm.
And I talked to my dad and I was like, well, I'd like to try, guitar lessons, just kind of see what's going on. And um, we did lessons for about like 6 months. And then I was like, I'm not really sure. And he appreciated my maturity and just being like, voicing that I, am kind of like just interested in it, or
Right.
I just kind of want to take it like this far or whatever.
And he was
Um,
teaching you?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How did that go?
Oh man, it was great. Like my
That's
dad and I
great.
have such a multifaceted relationship. Like we are
Yeah.
teacher,
So
student,
cool.
peers, father, son. As
It's
consultant.
beautiful, man.
Like
Yeah, of course.
yeah, it's
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 beautiful.
amazing. That's my hero, man, for sure.
Yeah, man. That's awesome.
Um, but yeah, man. So uh, we did it for about 6 months, and I was like, I'm not sure. Um, but I still like continued to kind of play around the house.
Yeah.
Um, and like right around that time was, I had always heard just music just around, like in the car, at home. Like my dad would be practicing for shows or whatever. Um,
Mm.
but it was like right around that time that I started like getting into music just like on my own. And
Yeah.
the first big artist I kind of like really sunk my teeth into was Earth, Wind and Fire, ironically enough. Um,
Wow.
and just from that point, they've been like number one for me, like just over all this time,
What
Even
was the record? Was there a specific record like that got a hold of you?
That's a great question, man. I don't think it was necessarily a specific record. I think it was just kind of just everything. Like I was hearing a lot of their music just on the
Yeah.
radio at that time, because like in Richmond, like the R&B station back then it was 104.7, but now it's
Mm.
105.7, Kiss FM. And they were playing like a lot more like old school stuff back
Yeah.
then, like they kind of do now. But um and that's kind of really what got my love for like 60s, 70s, 80s R&B music, just kind of because I was just hearing it all the time and I was like, yo, this is amazing.
Yeah, man.
But I was just hearing the music all the time. Just, Let's Groove Tonight, That's the Way of the World, Shining Star, a lot of just the album cuts like Serpentine Fire or like Reasons or, whatever. I was just hearing
Yeah.
a lot of it. And then we also had like, this was like, back during the DVD era. So
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
and like Circuit City and like all that kind of stuff.
It's so funny that is actually considered an era at
I
this
know,
point.
right?
It's like our lived reality, but yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So, I remember there's this, it's pretty much like the only like DVD from like their like classic period, which is like this live in Oakland concert in like 1981
Mm.
or 2, one of those 2 years. And I remember just being just fascinated. Like just just not
Yeah,
only
man.
musically, but just like the stage production, how much fun everybody looked like was they were having.
Yeah.
It would and it also just constantly looked like something was happening. Even if the
Right.
camera angle was changing, it was like something was constantly happening somewhere. Like somebody was doing something, somebody's walking around, like, somebody's throwing a tambourine in the air. Like, it was just amazing. And then just the sound and just the music and the energy and everything, it just captivated me, man. I would just come home from school in elementary school and just watch it. I just sit on the
Yeah,
floor
man.
like in our den and just watch it just every day. Like
That's incredible.
yeah, man. And so from there, it just kind of just blossomed into like learning their music and just kind of like trying to sit down and like really kind of like just learning music. And then I started gravitating towards the bass lines. And then
Of
that's
course.
yeah, and then that's how I started playing bass actually. Was through
Wow.
just it was through them. Like I just found myself naturally gravitating towards the bass lines, and I was playing bass like on guitar and I kept breaking strings. And my dad was like,
That's
"Why don't you just actually play a real bass? Like what are you doing?"
yeah,
Like
man. That's great. I love it.
so yeah, I mean that's kind of how this whole bass journey kind of started, and kind of like a little bit of my history with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Even from
Yeah. So for those people who don't know, you got to put this thing public again somehow, man. But this thing, so Brandon has done basically like I would call it a dissertation, like a
yeah.
doctorate on funk. I don't know. Are you a doctor yet or what?
No, it was for a graduate degree, so I guess technically the technical term is a thesis, and I mean
So
but
he
it
did a
more or less
thesis.
is a dissertation, more or less, but yeah.
Yeah, and he let me get a sneak peek into it, which is cool. It was basically a thesis on the structure of Earth, Wind, and Fire's songs. So he broke down a lot of their songs and kind of gave chord progressions over it, and a lot of really cool information in there that I wanted to touch base on because
Sure.
I just think it's incredible just that the power that they had,
Yeah.
And one of the things that struck me about what you said, it was basically coming out of like the civil rights movement,
Mhm.
and it was like an encapsulation of Black joy,
Yeah.
and that it was, and it struck me like just how political that is in itself. Just
Mm.
the idea of like Black joy,
Yeah.
and they were just like owned it, and they're out there doing it, and they're just like, we are here to like basically throw the most elaborate party you've ever seen. And if you watch like their live performances, it is like it's an incredible just feat to
Yeah.
pull that off.
Yeah.
So I was like really struck by that and just kind of seeing that, and it reminded me of I read a bit of Prince's autobiography,
Yes.
and it was one of the things that he said that stuck out to me was, I don't like it when people call what we do magic. He's
Mm.
like, that means that he's like, funk is work, man.
Yeah.
It's nothing but hard work. You get out there and you just do it. There's nothing magical about it. That's just like the hustle that comes with making music.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just thought it was really incredible to just that whole time period and what they did.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Absolutely.
They were hustling, man. They were working hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, it's incredible to just kind of see because especially like when you really look at the evolution of the whole band like over the course of the 70s, like from you know basically an underground kind of um college based kind of band because they were playing a lot of colleges at first.
Mm-hmm.
Like they played William and Mary. They played Virginia State
Really?
University in Petersburg. They played I want to say they played maybe U of R, maybe I'm not sure. But I know I know it was at least William and Mary, maybe uh, a college or two in the 757 area.
Mm.
Definitely Virginia State University because my dad saw them, excuse me, while he was there as a student.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, they were just touring around as a college thing. It was really underground until probably about 1974, which was when they had their first major hit, which was called Mighty Mighty. And then
Mm.
that's kind of when things started to change. And then that's the Way the World happened. And it was, I mean, they just exploded. And then,
So cool,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
And that DVD you're watching is 81, so that's like 10 years into their basically career, right? At that point?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So then it's like not only is like are they it's like not only are you seeing like the evolution of like where they have been, and that's the cool thing about that DVD too is that they play a lot of their older material too here and there because
Mm-hmm.
I've done research on that particular tour, and the tour was actually like the actual show was like 2.5 hours long, which obviously can't fit on a DVD. But so they
Right.
pared it down. But at the very least, they included like some of their older material that they put together in a medley, which is super cool because it, it's like you're seeing the evolution of the band, but then they always stayed true to who they were, like their roots, the like just the music of the beginning of the band's period, and like the
Yeah.
kalimba, and like all this. They always stayed true to that, even in the midst of commercial success.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and there was like one of the tracks because I started after I watched your presentation, I
Hmm.
like just wanted to like dig into what they did,
Yeah.
and there was one of the records where because one of the things you said is that they weren't so like forward with their lyrics
Hmm.
as far as like making political statements,
Yeah.
but they would they're one of the songs that stuck out to me is like I can't remember exactly the thing, but it's like we gotta fan the flame. It's like
Ah,
talking
yeah.
about
Hmm.
like how the love like the fire the love fire basically is
Hmm.
fading out, and who's gonna fan the flame, and it is like this really striking like narrative that they put together,
Yeah.
but it's like in the funkiest thing like you've ever heard, and you're just like
Yeah.
grooving. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna fan the flame, man. I gotta get out there and do something about this fire that's going out, and I want love to reign. Let's go fan the flame. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this speaking to your heart and your mind through the dance floor, basically.
Yes. Precisely.
It's
Yes.
brilliant.
Yeah, man. And then and just in other interviews that I've seen of them, just in preparation for the thesis and everything, they also have kind of talked about the import, like kind of realizing that, or just kind of like just being aware that you know the messages that they were trying to share and articulate were like fairly heavy for like
Mm,
that time period, because I mean you're coming off of like Motown, Stax, a lot of just like baby baby please type songs like that, and then
right,
it's like you've got a lot also happening sociologically and everything, so artists are beginning to respond to that, or
right.
have the freedom at the very least to respond to that. And so it's interesting to kind of see them like talk about that, because it's like they were aware, and then they also
Yeah,
knew that the music would kind of like be the vehicle for that, but then also
yeah,
the component of the stage show, like Maurice
right,
kind of talks about, we were aware that what we were laying on them was kind of heavy. I'm just paraphrasing, but he was
right.
aware that they were having something really kind of it being like a really heavy experience like for the audience, so they kind of had
Right.
to gear the show in a way to kind of keep their attention, because otherwise they would kind of
Mm,
just check out, or just kind of get lost in the
yeah.
sauce. So that's kind of how they started developing the show, where at first like the bass player would kind of like be up on this wire and be like floating over the audience, and then like Larry Dunn, the piano player, would be like strapped to this grand piano, and it would rotate like it would
Incredible,
rotate,
man.
and the drum set would rotate too, like.
Yeah.
And then they had like the disappearing acts, and stuff like the clip at the beginning of the thesis presentation, with the disappearing and the tubes, and going up in the pyramid and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, man.
Yeah. Talk